So, how you guys been? What you been doing?
I've been standing on the northern border of the United States of America and drinking deep of the sticky, deep stench of democracy that wafts up from my neighbor to the south.
Yeah.
Do you hear gay weed is legal now?
Really?
Gay weed? Not just regular weed? Gay weed.
Yeah, obviously.
Is that like
weed?
Is that like a bastardization of gay wad, or like?
I don't know, Johnny. I didn't mean for you to analyze it.
I'm curious. That's like, if there was, I don't know, something I was missing here.
You're already a robot, so.
Already?
Yeah.
These are troubled times, gentlemen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Word Funk. I am Leon Thomas. I am joined by Johnny Maloney and Austin Yorsky. All kinds of things are happening this week that are important to us and very few other people. Johnny, you have found something on the internet about video games that is controversial. But of all the controversial things about video games going on right now, this seems not but is still gross and somehow funny, and we need to talk about it.
I don't know if I would exactly describe it as controversial. It's sort of, controversy implies that there's some kind of argument going on about whether or not, something is essential or non-essential, or, what's the best way into the future, what's the best way to, take care of the kids, trickle-down economics, how do you feel about doing laundry on Saturday, and should we buy a regular vacuum, or do you want a steam cleaner for the carpet? This is a little more unilateral.
He's already lost me. This is a record.
Basically, okay, all right. I got sad news for everybody. The feminists have won video games. You can tell this because a couple of days ago, the brand new Call of Duty came out. And as we all know, there is no testament to how video games are being hijacked by social justice warriors than the year-upon-year release of those heart-rending, sensitive, cupcake-sharing, book club-talking Call of Duty games. And the Call of Duty games are kind of famous for having that scene. There's been a couple that scenes in the Call of Duty games, but the most famous one is probably from, I think it was Modern Warfare 2.
No Russian?
The No Russian. If you're not familiar, the No Russian level that Austin and myself are referring to, it was an area in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 where even though you're playing a United States secret agent in a terrorist organization, you become part of a splinter group that's supposed to shoot up an airport. And there was tons of controversy about free speech and whether or not it portrayed acts of terrorism in a sympathetic sense, or if it was breeding psychopaths.
This isn't quite that serious.
No, this is nowhere near that serious.
This one's kind of adorable by comparison.
It's funny. It's funny as far as I'm concerned. There's a scene in the very beginning of the new Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, face, ghost, shoot, punch guy, which I think is the full title, where the main character, at the very beginning of the game, you get your arm blown off and your best friend gets killed. And so, of course there's a funeral scene because, again, there has to be, we've got to make sure that we cater to the sensitive, military wife demographic.
This is like the Gone Home of military funerals.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, it's not the first time that a game tries to tongue-in-cheek its own cartoonish portrayal of violence. It wouldn't even be the first time that Call of Duty has tried to snark at its own exploitation of tropes. But the thing that everybody's talking about, and I want to talk about for a moment, is a button prompt that comes up during the course of the funeral, which says, and many of our listeners probably already know this, but the button prompt quite literally reads, "Hold X to pay respects."
You have to do a morning QuickTime event. Well, my question is, and I'm not trying to derail this, I really want to know, if you don't press the button to mourn your lost friend, do you suddenly not care about him? What I'm trying to say is it important for you to press the button?
It's one of those instant fail ones, or if you don't push it, you die. Just graphically, someone rips your head off, like God of War.
Yeah, everybody suddenly starts to talk behind your back, and they're like, well, maybe he's not a real soldier. Maybe we don't want him to tour duty. Why don't you just go back to baking school, Jenkins? And then it turns into an Activision-published Cooking Mama game.
In all seriousness, but
if you don't push it, you just don't do it. You just stand there awkwardly, and then the funeral continues without you.
So nothing that you do or do not do will or will not advance the plot.
Just whether or not fictitious electronic respects are paid.
Okay, so it's like Heavy Rain. Nothing matters.
More or less.
And that's the misconception. You can't fuck up Heavy Rain. We'll talk about that later.
But you don't fuck it up by not pressing X to Jason.
No, the early game decisions don't matter, but later we'll talk about that.
I know the game decisions matter, but you still get to the end no matter what you do.
Yeah,
is the point.
It just matters.
That was my dickish, snarky way of saying that, because I still don't like that game years later and feel like just inserting that into a conversation that has nothing to do with it.
I know.
That's how I roll.
Cage.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Johnny.
No, it's funny that you picked on Heavy Rain, because I got into a conversation with my partner about this, because I found it hilariously funny. Those of you who follow my Twitter feed may have noticed a couple of days ago that I think I said something like, press X to wistfully remember your first awkward sexual experience and mourn a lost innocence only perceived in hindsight. To which the ombudsman of WordFunk, Sean, asked me what happens when you press square, and I said, press square to deliberately avoid the scathing glance of your son as his Oedipal rage expands against your shrinking, aging masculinity. But I tried to explain this to Stephanie, and she laughed because she thought it was kind of like patently ridiculous. But I was like, no, I mean, do you understand why this is kind of stupid?
Did you mansplain it, Johnny? That's how it's coming across.
I didn't mansplain it. This is just me talking to somebody who doesn't play video games about why this mechanism is a stupid mechanism to have.
Because it's different.
Gamesplained it. But I brought up press X to Jason. I brought up the scene in Heavy Rain, where it's kind of like there are so many games that are being made nowadays, and language used to market those games. Like most recently, I can think of the Assassin's Creed Unity guys who announced that Unity was going to be frames per second locked at 30 on across the board. Consoles, PC, it doesn't matter where you get it, it's going to be 30 frames per second. And when people who have preferences to these things ask them why, they said, oh, well, it feels more cinematic. And that belies what I think is actually a huge problem with design philosophy in the industry, and that is the closer we get to being cinematic, which as a word really just means kind of like the movies. It means more like the movies. Then what we are unfortunately losing is the essence of what makes video games video games. My favorite stories to tell about gaming, tabletop D&D aside, because those are honestly my favorite stories to tell about gaming, because they are the most ridiculous stories that you can come up with, because you're basically given free ground and you create your own stories. Your dungeon master kind of gives you a framework and a plot and people to interact with, but you get these stories where you're kind of like, yeah, so there I was in full plate armor in a barrel of passion fruit when the city guard wandered in, and I had to pull my pants up. And it's like, you don't get these stories in games unless you let the players have them, right?
Yeah.
And the closer we get to on-rails narrative, the closer we get to just having a scene, because there's no reason why you have to hold X to pay respects.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the scene and have more focus on the scene from a storyline perspective, just from an atmosphere and a mood and tension. Oh, I lost my best. Oh wait, I have to press X to pay respects.
Instead of the story and the gameplay working together, it draws attention to the artifice of it when a button pops up over the emotional points. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it presents itself, it sticks out like a sore thumb in what could otherwise be like a moody scene. Because even though the thing that makes video games different from movies is that there's interface, that doesn't mean that interface is necessarily just pressing buttons. Because if you need to include in your game, like, oh, well, I guess we better get them to press a button here to do something that doesn't really affect the outcome, you are more or less, like, doing the same thing as me having to fast forward through commercials on, like, a recorded TV show, or trailers on a DVD or something like that. Because I'm pressing a button, but that doesn't mean it's interface. That doesn't make it a game.
It's kind of weird that we try to make video games more like movies, and I sort of understand some of the mindset of that, but that doesn't. It's strange that that happens with video games and movies, because that doesn't happen with like other media. No one says like, I need to make this book more like a painting. It's really strange to me that we all kind of like, I don't mean all of us like collectively, but a lot of industry types just kind of said at some point, I want to make this game more like a completely different art form.
I think it's because video games are still kind of in their infancy. Films have had 100 years of like language and technique and things to build on. Video games, are relatively young, so we don't have kind of the shared ideas about what all this means at this point. We're still borrowing techniques and language and stuff from films.
Yeah, but my concern is that the direction, the sort of arrow of all of this is like the end point for some developers is movie. Like not just borrowing from it, but like I need to make this game more like a movie. I need to make this game more like a movie. Like that's the goal. Like that's the finishing line.
There certainly will be studios for which that is the end goal. I think things like Naughty Dog and Quantic Dream are going in that direction, whether they can take everyone else with them or not. But I think there are plenty of people who understand that's not, the only way to go.
Well,
no,
good.
Absolutely. The problem as I see it is when you start chasing the legitimacy that's awarded to another medium, not just through their years and years of hard work and refinement of technique, but legitimacy that is predicated on a completely different medium. And it's tough for people to be able to separate the concept that video games and movies are different mediums, because people are trying so hard to blur those lines these days. With, like you said, Austin, Quantic Dream being like, look at all the Hollywood actors we've cast, and they have lines, and they wear these suits with bubbles on them. Yes. But
I think it's kind of weird that Liam Neeson was brought in to do Fallout 3, and I have nothing against Liam Neeson. I think he's actually a fine actor, but besides just bring him in because he won an Oscar, there doesn't really seem to be any real reason. Almost any voice actor who can do a gravelly voice would have been just as good, and would have cost a lot less. But I think someone said, we really want a big name actor who has all this prestige, and they got Liam Neeson. Again, I have no problem with the fact that he was in there. I just find it strange that it's needed.
Bethesda always does weird stunt casting for their voice actors. That's a thing.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying that's just a trend. They've always done that. I have no idea why. It doesn't add much.
The question that I was trying to lead to, that I'm gonna ask is that in the infancy of video games, though, like the very early days, it was all about seizing upon player agency. You couldn't get away with presenting something that looked really movie-esque, really cinematic. And just kind of like, okay, now you press a button to frown. But could you honestly imagine if somebody tried to get away with hold X to pay respects on even like the Nintendo Entertainment System or the Super Nintendo Entertainment System? They'd be laughed out of the park.
It's so patently ridiculous. That's why I'm not even like upset about this. I think it's funny because you see like this is the AAA, millions and millions of dollars in this, and they somehow got through a meeting. No one raised their hand and was like, "Hey, this is kind of dumb," which makes it all just like they had to have known, right? There's no way that this was serious.
I sometimes think about what goes on in those big meetings, and when I see something weird that happens in a game, because I have to think someone said this would be a great idea, and nobody shot it down.
I hope that there was one guy at the back of the room where they're like, they're showing the scene and all the artists and, the mocap people are really proud of it and environment designers and everything like that. And then like right in the middle of this heartfelt scene, a big white guy in a suit with a cigar is like, "You guys haven't pressed a button in a long time."
But actually, you're right. That's probably the exact thinking of it, because I think they expect that their fan base have really short attention spans and they want to constantly be doing something. They're not going to just sit there and watch.
It occurs to me that that's actually maybe the conversation that happened, but that image to me is even more funny than it being like earnestly included into the game. Like somebody designing it and being like, yeah, and then you go to a funeral and it's going to be raining, it's sad, and Kevin Spacey's there, and then you press X to pay your respects, and everybody's like, and like nobody bats an eye. It would be even more amazing to me if they did this scene totally straight-faced, and then some guy with a business degree that was like, I don't know. There's not enough buttons.
All right, I just want to say that although I do not completely understand Liam Neeson in Fallout 3, I kind of understand Kevin Spacey in the new Call of Duty. But that's because in Fallout 3, the Liam Neeson character didn't look totally like Liam Neeson. He just sounded like him, where you could get a voice actor to make that sound. But just from the commercial, I haven't played the game because I don't play Call of Duty at all, but just from the commercial, that's just Kevin Spacey in the game. It looks exactly like him. It's
Kevin Spacey as himself.
I like to consider it the unofficial sequel to House of Cards.
It's House of Cods.
House of Cods.
Oh no.
Call of Duty. Anyway, we've been on this subject for 20 minutes. I just wanted to say real quick before we go, though, that I don't think it's inherently silly that Call of Duty could attempt to wring emotion out of, a funeral scene. There's no reason that they can't go there. It's obviously it's the execution, but when I think about successful, emotional moments in video games, they're so much simpler. I feel like if they were really going for actual emotions, there was no need to go this.
Nobody gets teary-eyed over the QuickTime events in God of War 2.
Yeah, think of the saddest things you've seen in games. Aren't they all the opera scene in Final Fantasy VI or whatever?
One of the saddest games one of the saddest games that I've played in the last 10 years, Dear Esther didn't have any interaction other than just walking through a scene. I was moved to tears by that writing and voice acting and environment.
Well, the Final Fantasy VI opera scene, that's interaction in a beautiful way that actually worked, because if you play the game, you have to, as you're doing the opera, you have to pick which line is next. And that actually kind of makes sense. It's a lovely scene, and you're interacting with the game in a way that advances what's happening. Whereas press X to mourn just feels kind of cheap. And and the weird thing is, this could have been solved very easily, and it made it a lot less stupid. If they needed an interactive scene when you're sitting next to a coffin, all you need is someone next to you, and then you have a word tree, and one of them is you're super, super sad, and the other one is something else, and that can give you your interaction for your mourning without it looking so dry and silly.
Yeah. Well, if you reach that point more organically, but if they just drop it onto you like as a QuickTime event in the middle of a cutscene, it feels strange.
Do it quickly. Be sadder right now. Quick, press.
You know what game? I don't think I've talked about this since last time we talked about games that made us cry. You know what made me sob like a child was Thomas Was Alone. Have you guys played that?
I haven't.
I'm aware of it, but no, I haven't.
It's just a game about shapes, just colorful shapes. It's an indie game made by like one guy. It's just it's so simple and it's so elegant, and it's not even like overtly sad, but it just made me cry. It's just because it was so like perfect and beautiful.
Do you feel like Thomas sometimes, Austin?
You got to play it, guys. It's really good. It's really cheap, and it's also on like every system known to man. But comparatively, I guess Call of Duty costs millions of dollars, and it can't elicit a single emotion in an inherently sad situation.
Except perhaps ridicule. It seems to be pretty good at dragging ridicule out of people.
What's funny, this is supposed to be like the best Call of Duty in years, and here we are like slagging it off.
Do the shapes die? No, don't tell me. Don't tell me. I want to be surprised. I want to be surprised.
I'm not slagging the game is the thing, but it just, to me, it kind of represents this weird hurdle that game developers who want to tell, like, because why else would you get somebody like fucking Kevin Spacey in your game unless you want to tell stories better? You know? Like, you start employing actors and motion capture and like, script writers. Games have always been trying to tell stories better. Not necessarily in a cinematic way, but always telling stories better, you know? So why would you expend all that effort to tell stories better? And then stumble over involving the player in the way that the story actually comes out?
All right.
I know what you're saying.
In the game, I'm sorry, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm just saying that is the biggest takeaway for me, is that it's game developers stumbling over how to involve players in the story properly. You know, like, we've talked about the whole ludo-narrative thing that goes on, and, you know, it's not hard to, I mean, hell, Shadows of Mordor just came out, and that kind of, like, adds this weird new dimension to ludo-narrative, and everybody gushed over it, where it was like an orc named, you know, Bo Jackson comes and kills him, and you're like, curse you, Bo Jackson! I will hunt you to the ends of Mordor!
Bo Jackson really can do everything. He can play every sport.
Bo knows Mordor.
Okay. That's the emergent storytelling we talked about, Johnny. You marry the gameplay with the plot. So these things emerge organically. It's exactly what we're talking about. Nemesis system versus press X to feel.
Okay. Just one more thing. During Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, while Kevin Spacey gives orders to his soldiers, does he completely take you out of the story by looking at the camera and start narrating his life?
You don't like that? Are you making fun of that device?
That's one of the things that really turned me off to the show. I watched 2 episodes of that. That thing bothered me, and then when he was going down on a girl who he made call her daddy or something, I was like, nope, done!
I remember that.
Gross about myself.
The thing is, that's from the original series, the talking to the camera thing, so...
Yeah, they fixed that.
I like it.
I'm sorry, this is not my so-called life. I don't need this like first-person narration to tell me what's going on.
Speaking of disagreement, Leon, between you and me...
Oh, okay.
Are you ready for the next topic? Because I have a topic for you.
Go ahead.
You recently made a video about a movie called Snowpiercer.
I sure did.
And everyone loves it. It's a really acclaimed movie. It's really successful. Yeah. I just watched it. It just went up on Netflix. And I did not care for it.
Oh, okay. Tell me why.
I'm actually a big fan of, I'm going to butcher the name, but Bong Joon-ho, the Korean director. I really liked the creature feature he did called The Host.
Yeah. Awesome.
Wonderful.
And the movie he did after that called Mother, which I actually saw in theaters. It's
really
super good.
Yeah.
But this Snowpiercer is like a dystopian, like science fiction, post-apocalyptic thing. It's set entirely on a train. It's as good as an action movie. Like, people get, like, hacked up and punched in the face. That's cool. I'll talk about that in a little bit, because there are things I like about it. I don't want to come out completely negative. But the social, like, commentary, like the satire or whatever, is so clumsy and so heavy-handed that I couldn't help but like roll my eyes repeatedly.
Is it like Waterworld clumsy, or?
It's worse than that.
Because I'm sorry, it's just when I saw the premise for Snowpiercer, I was like, oh, it's like Waterworld except on a train.
It's intense. It's not like super subtle, but
it's not even slightly subtle.
But there's a lot of smaller details put into the film that are, and that's what I was trying to say in the video. There's a lot more to it than just these are bad guys, because
it is. All the rich people are like mustache twirling evil, and all the poor people at the back of the train are all like, they're so heroic, and they're rising up against their oppressors.
First of all, they're not, because Captain America tells us about the worst thing that I can think of anyone ever doing.
He tells us backstory.
Don't get into spoilers about what it is for those who haven't seen. But yeah,
I'm not. But he says that at the end as backstory. It's not something you get to see or experience.
Well, no, but there's even more, and again, I at the risk of spoiling it, it's also said that the other major top level leader of the back section is not what he seemed to be either.
I know, but I'm just saying, the whole thing is like, oh guys, I think maybe tyranny might be evil. What do you think?
It's not only about tyranny so much as it about the director's feelings on capitalism in general, which really riles some people up.
Yeah, I was about to say, you said you don't read your comments, but I read them, and boy howdy, do people not appreciate you even implying that capitalism is not perfect.
Alright, first of all, look, here's the thing. I wasn't even saying this is a problem with capitalism, because that's not what my video is about. I was saying this is what the director said is the problem with capitalism. So
I know, that's the crazy thing.
Yeah, my show is meant to be very impersonal. I do end up talking about movies that appeal to me and have some of my own sensibilities. Not all of them, but, but, I mean, I'm not going to do a movie that,
Leon, are you now, or have you ever been a member of the Snowpiercer fan club?
Yes, I am. I admit to it, and I don't care if I'm blacklisted for it. Look, I will say, someone, I don't read the comments, but someone, sent me a Tumblr ask, saying, what did you think about that comment under your video about that person who said he had a problem with incest in the movie? And I was like, what? Because there is none. But, I thought about it for a while.
There is the possibility of some, perhaps, but that's enough for some people.
I thought there were two possibilities for what that person could have meant. One is that I guess they thought that, John Hurt's character and the younger fellow who they're romantically involved, that there is a tattoo that explains this, and that's the subtle part of the movie. The tiny details are subtle, the messages are not, which is fine. What was my point I was trying to make? Oh yeah, I guess the idea someone might have thought that was his grandpa or something. No, they're just, what is the term? May-December lovers. That's all. There's just an age difference, and they're happy together. The only other idea is that there's only 2 people left alive at the end of the film.
That's the thing. You hit it, Leon. That's what we're talking about.
So someone had a problem with the fact that if there were a Snowpiercer 2, actually, scratch that, because that wouldn't be far enough into the future. If there were a Snowpiercer 3, you might be forced to see possible incest. So I guess if you're really worried about this becoming a trilogy and having to deal with the fact that incest exists, sort of, at the end, in an end of the world scenario, then yeah, sure, shit all over Snowpiercer. But if that's your main problem, that theoretically the tail end of the trilogy could have incest, I'm not really sure what to say to you.
That's a total deal breaker, Leon. That's why I couldn't read the Bible. Adam and Eve. Come on. Anything after that has to be depravity.
Oh God. So, I'm sorry you weren't a big fan, Austin. I can certainly see that. I don't get angry at people when they don't like the same movies as me. Yeah, I really like Snowpiercer. It's gonna, if I were the kind of, video, reviewer type who made videos about top 10 movies of the year, that would probably be one of them for me. Maybe
I have other questions, Leon. All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, so explain the science of this to me, because I can accept the premise that, global warming our attempts to fix it went awry and froze the Earth. Okay, that's fine as a premise.
Okay.
But at the beginning, they put the guy's arm out the window, and they say, 7 minutes, it'll freeze solid. So 7 minutes later, they take a sledgehammer to it, and it shatters, all right?
Yeah.
So that's fucking cold.
Right.
At the end of the movie, that's contradicted.
No, because they're going fast. And the air.
Gotta go fast?
You gotta go fast for that to happen, Austin.
Gotta go fast.
You gotta.
Look, I don't know. Oh, I got it. I solved it. The Snowpiercer, the train goes all over the world. Where they were at the time, it was super cold, but where they dropped off, it was
It takes place over the course of, a day.
But no. First of all, no. It takes the course over, 2 days. And second of all, the train goes all over the world super fast. It's like one of those bullet trains.
It takes them a whole year to circumnavigate.
Look, don't poke holes in what is otherwise a perfect film.
Also, there's all kinds of problems with the ending. The complex life would not have been able to recover that fast, Leon.
That's not the point.
If it was so cold, it brought down steel structures. Everything is dead. We're back to prokaryotic life, okay? The ending is garbage.
The ending isn't supposed to be... Alright, look, as a science fiction film, if you're watching this like Primer, and the science has to be perfect, then I can see why you have some problems with it. And I grant you that. But to me, the movie is not meant to be... It's a science fiction film in the sense that it takes place in the future. It's not a science fiction film in the sense that it is hard science like, say, Moon, I guess I want to say.
Moon's so good.
Moon is a very good movie. But anyway, the point is, the polar bear is not there to say, look, science. The polar bear is there to say, hey, life still goes on. Maybe everything might not be awful.
If it would have ended with someone pointing at the polar bear and going, look, science, I would have loved it. That would have been my favorite movie of all time. I do want to say some things I liked about it, because I read an article, a really smart article, about how the best thing about Snowpiercer is how it co-ops the structure of a video game, in the sense that, every car is a level, and there are bosses. There's the big fucking guy who kills the protagonist's friend, and then his brother who kills a bunch of main characters, and then there's this progression to it, and it's very much like a video game in that sense. So you get to the end, and there's the final boss and stuff like that. And I thought that was really cool, and it reminded me a lot of Die Hard and the Raid Redemption, which are also very similar. It's get to Hans Gruber, get to the roof, or get up this apartment complex to the boss. They're very straightforward, they're very constrained, and I think that gives them focus, as opposed to a lot of James Bond, Bourne movies, action movies, where they travel all over the world and there's no sense of place.
Yeah.
I think Snowpiercer has a very strong focus, and I think that really helps the action. Especially, there's the fucking scene with the fish. Yeah. That whole axe fight, that was great. That's a great scene. So there is stuff I like about it, but the science and just the goofy-ass, social messages that were so obvious. I don't disagree with any of them. They're just super obvious. Indoctrinating children with, lies is evil. Yes, clearly. Cannibalism is scary. Yes, I know. Thank you.
It's the worst thing. It's right up there with incest at the end of the world.
Okay, I'm gonna stop bitching, but everyone should watch The Host, which is a revolutionary horror movie in the sense that it makes the characters likable, which is almost unheard of in modern horror movies.
Yeah, most horror movies these days, because I'm an old man here, your kids don't understand. No, a lot of horror movies, the tension is supposed to be you care about the characters, and that's where the suspense comes from. But so many horror movies, they're just about the fact that we're waiting for them to get picked off. We're rooting for Michael Myers or Jason at some point, and that's not what horror movies are supposed to be. But The Host, you love those characters.
Mm-hmm.
When the uncle character, when they're about to get out of I think like the hospital, and they're in that parking lot, and the uncle character takes like a few seconds to step out of the van to just sort of like swagger a little bit towards the guys, and then get back in the van. I howled. It was the greatest moment.
For me, it was the funeral scene. when they all collapse in a heap at the feet of the or at the foot of the memorial, that did it for me. That did me in.
When they pressed X to learn the meaning of family.
Oh yeah, that was a really, really great part.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, just while we're talking about how great a director this guy is, even though if you didn't like Snowpiercer, see Mother, and also see Barking Dogs Never Bite. That's one that my wife introduced me to. Actually, she was a big fan of this director way before me, and that's why I've seen all these movies. Anywho, anything more we want to say about Snowpiercer before we talk about an even more amazing sci-fi feature that's coming up? And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just, before we move on, I just want to say, because I talked about this a little while ago on the podcast, that if you're a fan of Terry Gilliam and you have Netflix Canada, you're in luck because The Zero Theorem is on Netflix Canada.
Is it not on Netflix America?
I don't believe it is.
What?
I don't believe it is. I don't believe that The Zero Theorem is currently on Netflix America.
America has everything so great, and then when there's tiny little injustices, I feel like so personally slighted.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to inform that anybody that's got Netflix but not Netflix Canada, you can't get The Zero Theorem, but check out The Zero Theorem on Netflix Canada. Because it's awesome.
Okay.
Okay.
And I will, but you know what? Netflix Canada does not have Snowpiercer. So
most of these movies you can get on video on demand at some way or another, so they're not like too hard to get. I'm almost positive. Yeah, Snowpiercer was like big on video on demand because it couldn't get a big theater release because Weinstein Company sucks. Anyway, there is a movie coming out. Another sci-fi movie that we're going to talk about, and the premise is that a man has made an artificial intelligent robot that looks it's how do I put this?
It's a robot.
It's bipedal, so it's
a robot from Fooly Cooley, guys.
It is the robot from Fooly Cooley.
This is by the director of District 9. I noticed in the trailer that it says the director of District 9 invites you. And it didn't say the director of District 9 and Elysium. I noticed.
It's weird how they just glazed over that one, you know?
I guess when every M. Night Shyamalan movie comes out, they says, from the director of The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, and nothing else. Alright, but no, there's a new movie coming out next year, and it's called Chappie. I hope I got that right. And it's about a robot, and it has artificial intelligence, and Hugh Jackman has a problem with that. And
a mullet.
And a mullet, and the government is concerned.
That is, sorry, Hugh Jackman has the mullet, not the robot.
Right, that would make it a much better film if it did, but, we just have to go with what we have. Johnny, you brought this to my attention right before the show, and what do you think this really is?
Well, do you want it straight, Leon?
Yeah, I do.
Just throw it out on the table?
Do it.
Just unzip my word bag and just slap my vocabulary of what I think this really is out on the table for everybody to gaze at in magnificent awe?
Well, yeah, basically.
It's short circuitry.
Yeah, there is a certain familiarity to seeing this trailer.
Now, Leon, would you please explain to me, because being a much younger man than you, I've never heard of movies called Short Circuit 1 or 2.
Even though you brought it up, sure.
Edify me, pray tell.
Okay. Short Circuit is the story of a white man pretending to be an Indian man who creates...
And really, really poorly as well, just in case we're like,
Yeah.
we just want to be clear that this isn't like, actually, I didn't know that guy was white.
Yeah, a friend of mine recently made a video about Breakfast at Tiffany's that had Mickey Rooney in yellowface as an Asian man, and this Short Circuit is not as offensive in that, but still it's off-putting, I guess you would say.
It's less offensive than Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more offensive than Peter Sellers at the party.
I actually haven't seen that one. Tell me. Wait. Let's talk about Peter Sellers at the party in a second. Short Circuit is a story about a guy who makes a robot named Johnny Five, and he has a conveyor belt feet, and he rolls around wanting to learn everything about humanity. And
Okay, well, first of all, sorry, Leon, this movie that I've never seen before is about a bunch of robots that are designed for military applications.
Well, yeah, I mean, the military wants them, but Johnny Five is like, no, I can't do an impression, so I'm not going to even try. But he wants to kind of do his own thing and read Hound of the Baskervilles, and
You see, he has a short circuit.
Oh my God. You did it. You did the thing.
And that kind of wakes him up. I've read. I mean, I wouldn't know.
I was going to kick you out of the Skype chat, but I didn't want to mess up Leon's recording.
Here's what... Alright, look. Short Circuit, I can't even remember a lot about Short Circuit 1, because I think I've seen it once. I've seen Short Circuit 2, like 5 or 6 times. I don't know why. I just have. It includes, like, the saddest scene in a movie, besides that one scene in Monster Squad where the little girl throws the stuffed animal at the Frankenstein monster. That's the saddest scene in a movie. But the second saddest scene in the movie is from Short Circuit 2, where Johnny, 5 is attacked.
I'm gonna have to veto that. The saddest scene in the movie is when Wilson falls off the raft at the end of Castaway.
I laughed so much.
That is the only movie that's ever made me cry, and it was that part.
Really? Okay. All right.
It was when it came out. I was like 10, but when did Castaway come out? Hold on.
It was a long time ago. But yeah.
Yeah, I was 10.
The Short Circuit movies, they're not like considered to be like magnificent science fiction, and I know how important hard science is to Austin in your sci-fi movies. So it's not really explained in incredible detail why Johnny Five is alive. But
Shall I repeat myself here?
Okay.
Don't do it, Johnny.
At some point in time in the first movie,
yeah,
he gets struck by lightning, and
that'll do it.
That creates a short circuit.
Yeah! Okay. So...
Is there a way to mute him?
Lightning is the key to humanity, I think.
Anybody who's familiar with Zeus knows this.
Right. So anyway.
Or for that matter, Odin and Thor.
Okay, so it's about robots that gain sentience, and then they learn the meaning of
Through
love.
The power of the gods! Austin.
And then something tragic happens, right?
Yes, Steve Guttenberg disappears from the franchise.
And there's a gang called Los Lobos, and they will kick your balls into outer space, as I recall.
Yes.
That's not where those belong.
Yeah, not at all, and that's why it's so threatening.
So this new movie, gosh, you guys are so bad at staying on topic. This new movie, made by the District 9 guy, is the same exact thing. It's about a robot that gains sentience, and then it learns about the world around it, and then military people come, and then sad things happen.
And hopefully the ant word raps.
What the thing is, when I'm watching this trailer, if at the end it said Short Circuit, and I said, oh, well, this is the gritty reboot to Short Circuit, this is just what they're doing, and this makes total sense, I would buy that. But apparently it's and I'm using finger quotes here, original story. I am curious because I liked District 9. I didn't even bother to see the other one because I heard terrible things.
Elysium?
Yeah, I'll certainly try this, though. I like science fiction. I like the robots.
Why Chappie?
R2-D2s.
That's a
I don't
terrible
know.
name.
I guess because they wanted to give this robot a cute name.
Yeah, there's got to be a childlike innocence.
Yeah, it has to be a child. They say in the trailer, he says, he's just a kid, and then they shoot missiles at him, which is what you do with kids.
Why not name him something actually cute? Like, I don't know, Wally?
That's too cute, though. That's too cute. They have to give him a name that's whimsical, but not, like, precious. Like, if they called him like Pink Bottom or something, like, then no one wants to sit in line and say, I'll take 2 for the 3D showing of Pink Bottom. And you kind of have to say that in, like, low tones. But
It implies that Johnny Five, Chappie, sorry, has some growing up to do. You know, that there's some development that has to happen because it's obviously not Whittle Princess.
So wait, at the end, is he going to go by, like, Mr. Chaps or something?
I certainly hope so.
Reginald Chappington. Now, you know what I would love? These movies, they always have, not just Short Circuit and with Will be Chappie, but also things like E.T. and all manner of science fiction films. They always have this, like, fish out of water, alien, robot, whatever character, and the government has to get it because they think it's dangerous. But, of course, E.T. is harmless. E.T.'s just there, you know, or E.T. doesn't even want to be there. Johnny Five is not dangerous. Johnny Five just wants to read books and get input, as he says.
You know.
What would be great if Chappie, like, presented itself that way, but halfway through the movie, Chappie learns more and more about humanity and then tries to destroy everyone, and then everyone says, the government was right! Jackman was right the whole time. And we just weren't expecting that.
Or they just make the government totally chill about it the whole movie. They're like, no, it's fine. He's harmless. And then fucking Chappie does the Fifth Element Google search.
Are we talking that Chappie is an unofficial mashup of a Terminator prequel and Short Circuit 3? Because that sounds like where we're going with this one, gentlemen.
If it ends with them putting Arnold Schwarzenegger skin on Chappie, I'm gonna scream in the theater.
The thing is, in these movies, like in E.T., they portray the government as the villains. And I understand you need a villain in the movie, and you don't want to just introduce another scary alien. So you have to deal with that, and the kids are trying to protect E.T. But the government in E.T. is not out of line here. There's an alien from another planet that just landed in the suburbs, and they have to investigate what's going on.
Leon, are you suggesting that a 12, 11-year-old boy is not a sufficiently qualified guardian for a visitor from another planet? Because if that's the kind of America you want, then I don't want to live there.
You don't live there.
I know. Why?
There are serious, like, biohazard issues with the fact that there is an alien from another planet in our world. We don't know what it's carrying. We don't know if it can carry over to us. And it's not just about bonking it over the head with, like, a sack of oranges and dissecting it for no reason. The government...
When you say carrying, you're talking about, like, bacteria and viruses, not like chocolates and flowers, right?
No, I mean, we don't know what is inside of it, what it's going to belch out at us. I mean, it seems like it has some of our same interests. It loves Reese's Pieces and Star Wars or something. But the fact is, it's still an alien from another planet, and we have to sort of guard ourselves. Even if it's not hostile, we have to check this out. And so, like, the government in E.T., they're the villains in the sense that they're the antagonists, but they have reasonable fears, and they have to take care of this.
Yeah, like in the Chappie trailer that you sent to me before we started this, which by the way gives away the entire plot more or less.
Yeah.
It seems like it's like all innocent and stuff, and then the people are just dicks to it for no reason and teach it the meaning of hate. Like,
well, something that I gleaned from the trailer is that he sees other robots at times, and I thought I saw that there was like a little badge on his breastplate that said police. So I kind of get the impression that he's a civil disorder enforcement robot or something like that becomes derelict for some reason, and then this Slumdog Millionaire picks him up.
That's racist, Johnny.
No, it's the guy from Slumdog Millionaire.
Oh, never mind. That's not racist anymore.
So wait a minute.
I thought you...
So what you're saying is Chappie has a badge, so he's some sort of robotic cop.
I think Chappie had a badge.
No,
he may have been a robotic cop.
Oh,
Leon.
I have the perfect name for him.
Uh-huh.
Cyber Police.
Okay. I like that. That sounds good. That sounds like nobody has ever thought of that before.
Nailed it. One shot. Got it.
Yeah. There you go.
Guys, we have to go because American Horror Story is starting in 4 minutes, and I have to watch it as it happens. Also, immediately after, I'm going to watch a recording of MasterChef Junior because it's way better than MasterChef. See, MasterChef is basically like 12, 20, or some, so, home chefs who are actually like totally really good and could work at like big 5-star restaurants, but they haven't been discovered yet. And they're all sort of catty to each other, but they're still mature enough that they aren't complete dicks the whole time. But MasterChef Junior is 20 kids who are also really catty to each other, but are not mature enough to know when to stop. It's amazing. It's like a horrible social experiment on network television, and I have to watch it. And I really do have to go. Guys, I'll talk about MasterChef Junior more next week, but anything you want to say right before we hit the stop button?
Yeah.
I played the original Fallout. I played the original Fallout for the first time this week, and it wasn't good. Sorry, Johnny.
You're an asshole.
No time to discuss that topic. I guess we're going to leave now. Bye.
Austin hates everything we love. Now, Johnny, anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, my favorite line out of this week's The Watchtower announcing Jehovah's Kingdom was that one of the articles is titled, "How Could I Commit This Great Badness?" And now I really want to be in a breakdancing movie so that I can serve someone and then afterwards be like, how could I commit this great badness?